Hello and welcome to Rate Sports. Make sure you like, subscribe for more NBA content. Today's video, we're going to talk about what the Lakers might look like next year. Now, we're going to jump right into it and talk about the players that the Lakers already have under contract. Starting off with LeBron James with 39 million, Danny Green with 15, Avery Bradley with 5, JaVale McGee with 4, Kyle Kuzma with 3.5, Quinn Cook with 3, Alex Caruso with 2.7 and Talon Horton Tucker with 1.5 million dollars. Now, those are the players that the Lakers have under contract to start the next season. Anthony Davis has opted out of his contract, but he does plan on re-signing a long-term deal. This is best case scenario for the Lakers, and we'll get into that later. Caldwell Pope is going to test the free agency market. However, I do see us having a good chance of bringing him back. Not just because we won a championship, but he was getting paid 10 million last season, and I can see him maybe going for a deal around the 13 to 15 million range. That would be the least we'd be able to offer him, but at the same time, I think that's the most we would give him. Just because what we're trying to do, I don't think we're gonna have that much money just to give around to a Caldwell Pope. He is only 27 though, and it will be interesting to see if there are other teams out there who are trying to pay him the 20 to 25 million, the big range price. He has proven to be a consistent shooter in the playoffs, in the finals, and he did play very well on defense. However, he has shown he can be inconsistent during the regular season. It'll be interesting to see after a championship if he wants to go to a rebuilding team or a struggling team for more money, or if he wants to stay and compete for more rings while still getting paid a decent salary. Dwight Howard is also going to test the free agency market, and the Warriors are a team that is front running for him. He was getting paid the minimum 1.7 million, and this was a non-guaranteed minimum. So that meant if he screwed up, the Lakers can kick him off the team and he would not have gotten paid. Now, with the Warriors and Lakers being the two main teams after him, I still see him getting paid towards the minimum. I do think it will be guaranteed now and it won't be a non-guaranteed contract, but it will be around the minimum, maybe 1.7 million to 3.5 million at max. I don't really see him getting anything over 5 million with either team, and it looks like these two teams will be the teams where he makes his decision on where to go. And with that being said, I think he will ultimately stay with the Lakers for that minimum to maybe 3 mil max contract. I think Dwight Howard is at a point in his career where he values winning and he wants to win more rings. He is a player who has been disrespected before this ring, saying what a lot of people saying they don't think that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think a couple more rings will solidify it, him being a first ballot if this ring already hasn't. And why would he go to a different team when he knows it works with these guys? I think him and LeBron have a good relationship. Him and Anthony Davis, I think they have good chemistry. I think he will come back. Now going on to the next player, I'm not sure that Dion Waiters will return, however. He is still 28 years old. He's still young in his prime. He was a solid, good player before the incident with the Heat where he got suspended for a couple games for overdosing on some gummy bears, some weed gummy bears on a plane. Now he just won a ring, and unless he would want to keep a lesser role in hopes to win more championships and lesser pay, I just don't see him sticking around with the Lakers. We was able to pay him 1.7 mil, and honestly, I don't see us paying him more than 5 million. Depending on how this roster turns out. If this roster turns out how the Lakers wanted to turn out, with getting a third type of star to fill that role, I don't see us being able to bring back a Dion Waiters with him being 28 and probably wants more money. Like I said, unless he is just ring hunting at 28 years old and he's okay with less pay. Now on to the next player. Markieff Morris is a player I think LA can get. I think they can afford him. His contract was only 3.3 million and he signed it a couple years ago with the Pistons. So we would realistically only have to pay him about that 1.7 mark a year to keep him. Now that is if he keeps that same level of pay, and he isn't a player who necessarily stood out to during these games as someone, okay, well, let's give him big money. So I do think we will be able to keep him. I think he will stay. I think he will run it back another season. I think he signs a low contract, whether it's the minimum or whether it's around that $3 to $5 million range. Either way, it will be cheap, and I do think he runs it back. Now, going on to Kostas Antetokounmpo. A lot of people don't know he's on our team, and a lot of people don't know who he is, but he is Giannis' brother who has just won a ring before Giannis. Now, Kostas is a part of our G League team. I think that's why a lot of people don't recognize him or know who he is. We only bring him up when we face the Bucks, and because we was in the bubble, he was around this whole time because we had to bring a certain amount of players in, and he was one of those players. Now, I do think we will re-sign him to a similar deal he had before, was that two-way deal where it's like, okay, you play for the G League, but you also can be called up for NBA games and suited for NBA games, which is what we did, like I said, against when we faced the Bucks. We let him see his brother. We let Giannis know, look, little bro is here in LA if you ever want to come. Now, going to the next player, Jared Dudley is a player that we can easily bring back if we want to, and if he wants to, it won't cost anything. He will get a minimum, and he will be a good presence in the locker room, a good attitude, that sort of reassurance, that sort of person who keeps everyone's head straight, keeps everyone on task, especially when going back to back. He will help out some of the younger guys. If we keep the younger guys or not, we will get onto that later. Now, Rondo is also testing free agency, and the Knicks are reportedly a team who is really, really interested in him. Now, I can definitely see the Knicks throwing money at Rondo's way just because they have money to blow, because no one wants to join that team. Now, Rondo is a player who we only paid him $1.5 million, and he is 34, so it will be interesting to see exactly how much money the Knicks throw his way. Will it be so much where it's like, okay, I would be dumb not to take it, or will it be sort of in that in-between range where it's like, okay, well, I could go get about a couple million more with the Knicks, or I could get a couple million less with the Lakers and compete for another championship. I don't see him joining another contender unless that other contender is paying him the same amount of money the Lakers will be willing to pay him. Now, the Lakers will probably pay him the minimum. I don't see the Lakers going crazy. Like I said, a lot of these players, the Lakers will give the minimum or will be close to the minimum, around $3 to $5 million max a year. I don't see us blowing the bank on these type of players. I don't see us paying Rondo up to $5 million. I think it would be less on the minimum to the $3 million range, especially with him being at 34. I know he has played well in the postseason. He had a shaky finals, had a couple bad games, couple good games, a great closeout game. However, he is 34, and we have the potential to get Chris Paul, and that's what I'm going to get into right now. Now, I made a separate video on exactly how we could get Chris Paul, and you can watch that to see the trade and everything that would have to go into it. But if we do go through with that and we do get Chris Paul, I do not see us getting Rondo at all. I feel like he will sort of Chris Paul to a lesser degree. He can make the same as Chris Paul. He can run the pick and roll in terms of getting it to the open man the same as Chris Paul. But Chris Paul is that, but elevated. He is what you've seen Game 6 in the finals against the Heat from Rondo. That is Chris Paul consistently. He's able to hit those threes if he is open or even if he is not. And with Chris Paul, when he's running those pick and rolls, those pick and pops, you can't sag off. You can't guard the paint against that. You can't just sit paint when you do that like you can with Rondo. They was doing that throughout the whole series, throughout the whole playoffs with Rondo, and just saying, okay, you're going to hit the three. Chris Paul, you can't do that. You have to respect it, because Chris Paul is a lethal, I want to say lethal, but Chris Paul is a knockdown shooter. He can hit the three. He's one of the best mid-range shooters in the game, and he is also one of the best playmakers in the game. Now, Chris Paul is getting paid around $38 million, so how would this work exactly? Well, you can check it out in the other video I made that gets all into the Chris Paul details on how he can get to the Lakers. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people saying we wouldn't be able to afford Anthony Davis or even these other players that's already on our roster if we do get Chris Paul or another all-star player who is on one of those high contracts. Now, that is false, because we have Anthony Davis's bird rights, Caldwell Pope, Rondo, and Kostas Antetokounmpo's bird rights. So that means we can go over that salary cap and dip into the luxury tax to obtain these players again. Now, this doesn't mean we necessarily have to get a Chris Paul, but I do think we will get another high contract, all-star, high caliber player, because this is their golden opportunity to do so I don't think the Lakers miss out on this opportunity to get another player of that caliber. So I definitely still see us trading away for another all-star type of player while we still have the assets like Danny Green, Kuzma, and picks. So going off of that, I will go into what I think the roster will look like. I think Chris Paul would be the point guard, Caldwell Pope would be the 2, LeBron would be the 3, AD would be the 4, then Howard would be the 5. Rondo is a question mark, but for right now I'm saying we will bring him back. Then Bradley, Caruso, Markieff Morris, and JaVale McGee will be the 5 key bench players. And as far as our small ball lineup, I think we'll get Chris Paul, Avery Bradley, Caldwell Pope, LeBron, and Davis, who will be closing out their games. I think that would be our best lineup. And technically, we can wait until next year to get that max player because LeBron signed a 4-year deal, and after 3 years, he can opt out, and then he can re-sign, similar to what AD is doing with the Lakers right now, how he's re-signing, so we have his bird rights, so we could go over the salary into the luxury tax. However, with LeBron aging, I see him wanting to get better as best of a team as possible right now and not wait a year because who knows what's going to happen after a year. So I think he will be in win mode now, wanting to win now, wanting to get the best team now. So I do see them pushing the agenda on a trade for that high caliber player. That being said, whether it's a Chris Paul, Avery Bradley, whoever it is, I do see us coming back with another star, another all-star player on this team while still being able to get Caldwell Pope and Anthony Davis back. Rondo is a question mark. But I'm going to leave it there. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment if there's any other videos you would like me to do. And I'll see you tomorrow.